You could have a respectable budget to go to market, right? But if you don't know what that story is, that is your lived experience as well as your expertise and what you're bringing to the table and to whom you're bringing that to, going to market is not something you should be doing first. It's understanding what your brand story is and who that speaks to, and what is the business opportunity for you in regards to that. So I want to ask you this question, Lyle. The leverageability of earned media is greater than any other form of media when it comes to authority building specifically. So if a brand is looking to go down this path, what do they need to know?
The path of paid media?
The path of earned media, because that's how, because that's how you create authority, right? Yeah. Is to earn your media.
Yeah. So, and we'll touch on this, within earned media, right? It's within the word earned. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I would say is research, research, research. And what I mean by that is not only do you have to research, when you're trying to get earned media, you're going to, this is earned, you're going to put together a press release, right? That is going to be specific to the brand category, that highlights research that shows the societal trends today as it applies to your brand.
Right.
I'm like, that's part of the research. The second research is you have to research, who are you pitching this to? So you have to know, okay, I want to go to Vogue. I need to know that editor, and that editor loves corduroy. She loves corduroy with like these straight orange with the black and a little off, purple. Like she loves that. So if you research the editor that you're trying to reach, you have to take the social trends, the statistics as it applies to your brand, presenting your brand, and then weave it where you're going to be applicable to the individual who's going to read this. And I think those things are really important. So you have to research that. The second thing is you have to know the audience, as we talked about before, of that media placement. And maybe it is Vogue. So you just have to know what they're looking for. You may say it's a female who's 18, 24 and lives in Toronto or lives in New York or lives in Vancouver. And then the last thing I would say is in getting that earned media, I always say, you keep it simple. So you're going to have to write a headline and a subheadline that is going to pull on the ear of that editor in that way that you researched what is trend setting today or what the statistics were. Like, for example, I could think, well, if I had a soap company and we're in the middle of COVID, you may be an organic soap company and you may have done all the research to find out that, wow, that's why we became organic, was because we came to find out that there's a lot of chemicals in liquid soap or regular soap that are really harmful and that the skin is really porous. But I do need to tell people about, soap, and I want to bend the ear during, you may write a headline that's kind of, whether it's targeting COVID, or you may want to target a headline that explains that soap used to run a dirty campaign. I don't know. Whatever that is.
I love that.
So
play on words.
Yeah. So those things I think are important in order to find that earned media, because within earned media, you have to understand their business model is to attract today's reader, viewer, listener.
Right.
So those things are important in the earned media space.
So now let's go to paid media, Lyle. Paid media is best suited to soliciting clients, and that is hands down, which is why content marketing has become like this, has become kind of the holy grail in that space. It's the standard bearer to the success of soliciting clients today, because based off of a lot of what you've been talking about, creating authenticity to your lived experience that speaks to a specific niche, is what you need to first do. When you're looking at paid media, there's no difference. Putting out an ad today, is not the same as it used to be. If there isn't a story associated with that, you kind of get lost in the mix because people are looking even at advertising to be humanized, right? And we've touched upon that as well. Can you shed some light on why this is the case? Because a lot of people still who do paid media are doing it based on kind of a lot of the old ways of doing it, which are inauthentic to kind of the humanizing of the story. So I'd love for you to shed some light from your experience on the content marketing piece.
Sure. I think what was really interesting, which, you know, I'll certainly talk about is it's still an education process. We are still in the transitional phase from understanding, you know, an attention economy, what I would call an attention economy, to moving into this research economy. And what I mean by that is that when you start a brand, right, you are close to the product, we're going to bring this to market, and there are many different platforms, but I'm going to go back to that which I know most. I'm going to go back to, oh yeah, everybody's advertising. I guess that's what I'll do. And then if you talk to somebody about content marketing, they're like, oh yeah, I've kind of heard about that. Is that like sponsored content? So it's still an education process. But I think, you know, I think the interesting thing about paid media as a platform in a digital space is that, you know, I always say from the Post, because we also had another story coming out of, this was also coming out of Austin, Texas at one point. And this story, the journalist was like, you know, this person wanted to do X, and then they sent us the story, and we're reading it, and I'm reading it, and it's like, it became a pitch. And for the Post, we don't pitch.
Right.
That's the old adage. This is about this person really probably has an interesting story why he wanted to do this. And so as we began to work with the journalists, we were able to, you know, pull the story out of it. But I would just say this is that, you know, I say that because at the Post, I always say we write from the outside in. The beauty of having a tenured journalist call you, sit with you for 60 minutes or 90 minutes, they're on the outside of your brand.
Right.
They don't know anything about your brand, why you got started, what it is, what are some of the, and they, from a human standpoint, will be able to ask the layman questions. And within that, pull out the story that comes with it. And within the story comes out the keywords, authentically, the key phrases. Of
course.
All of it comes out within a 90-minute interview. So we write from the outside in. We just did another piece for a company here in Los Angeles, actually, that writes kind of trade publication papers for people that are of specialized industry, whether doctor, engineer, that are trying to come into the US. And it was the same sort of thing as they said, okay, don't worry, we have a journalist on staff. We'll have them write the piece. I said, okay, well, do know that once it comes to our editors, we'll look it over, and our editors we always say, I do have the last say, but it's always an education process, because when you write from the inside out, you will write in a way that is going to push you that's going to push you to buy, right? And we have to remember that we're trying to pull the consumer to the brand. So when you write from the outside in, it's objective. When you write from the inside out, it becomes subjective. So I think that is really an interesting thing today, that you have the ability to sit with a journalist for a 90-minute interview that's outside of your brand and is going to pull out the information that really you may have bypassed. You may have gone, okay, I was in a car accident. I mean, whatever it was. But the average reader today, who may only take 30 to 50 seconds to skim an article that's 2,000 words, when they see something that's compelling, they stop. They'll read through it quickly. It's like doing a history paper. I mean, they'll read the stuff that makes sense. So I think in paid media, we have the ability, as you had said, to control the narrative. I always say, look, Vogue or Vanity Fair, maybe doing a great story on Johnny Depp, right? They may want to do a great story on Johnny Depp, but they're going to do a story that's going to make that cover story pull a consumer in to buy the magazine. And what happens is, in those cases, when those paid media platforms, the earned media platforms write these stories, they don't let the client see the final story.
Right.
That's in earned media, because they have to use the business model to make it sensational. Within the paid media model, the first thing we do is we interview you for 90 minutes, we pull all the information out, the writer writes the story, the editor goes through it, and then the first person to see it for focus and fact is you, the brand. So you go, oh, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I knew. That's great. Could we also talk about, and then we all get together. Yes, we can do, but it's not promotional. And so I think in the paid media scope, you get to tell your story, but it's from the outside looking in instead of from the inside out. And I think, as I say with the Johnny Depp article in Vanity Fair, for example, if we put an art journalist on him, it may be, maybe he wants to have a story written, and the journalist follows him for 2 weeks. But it'll be from Johnny Depp's perspective going, wow, that's how he spends his day. Like, it's a whole different. So I think those are really interesting things that you have the ability to have in paid media today. The ability to tell your story, control your narrative, and be able to have a journalist, pull that out and write it.
Absolutely. So folks, I hope that you have garnered the magic from, the conversation so far. This last little bit that Lyle was talking about, I feel is very key for you to understand. And I get this all the time with my clients. They're like, oh, but, I want earned media because that means that, I didn't pay for it. But what a lot of people don't understand is someone is getting paid somewhere along the line regardless. Either you are paying the media to write the story to your narrative, or you're paying a publicist who has a relationship with somebody that is writing the story. So either way, someone is getting paid to write that story. So you have to decide, what works for you from that perspective. My personal perspective on this that I want to share with everyone, and that I share very transparently with all of my clients, is I feel you need a bit of both. I feel that you do need to have the opportunity to have a media platform that is experienced in storytelling to tell the story from your narrative. And I do believe that you do need the authority building by association earned media piece too. I don't think one without the other today is necessarily telling the full picture of your brand. I'd love your thoughts on that, Lyle.
I think what's really interesting, as I was saying, you never know who reads an article. A lot of times people think when we do an article that it's going to be a general consumer who will read it. But we've actually had journalists read the article. I think that's what's really interesting, because you never know who's researching a certain piece.
Right.
And so we automatically think, oh, you're marketing. No, you never know who's researching the piece for what reason. And so you may have actually someone within media who picks up on an article from another media piece and goes, wow, the Post covered that, and then they're using the piece to kind of start that conversation with the brand. So I think that's really interesting.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this, so we can kind of wrap up kind of this whole idea of storytelling. All media, regardless of type, relies on storytelling. Short, medium, long form, audio, visual, written. I want to ask you this, just to encapsulate it for everyone out there. What ingredients make for a compelling story today, Lyle? I feel that you've already answered this question, but to encapsulate it for everyone, if you could do that, that would be really great.
Yeah. I think the most important ingredient is to make something compelling is to make it as unique to you. I often tell clients, especially in a textual process, such as writing a story. The beauty of this is the coattail, right? Is writing a story, we submit it, we post it online, and within a week, that post is meta tagged through Google for the next 8-10 years. This all came out, you were asking me earlier about starting the post. Well, I have twin boys, and those twin boys several years ago through their school started researching their dad. They put in the name and they go, and all of a sudden articles from years ago in the LA Times and ABC News would come up on my, profession. And they said, wow, Dad. And all of a sudden, for me, that was really what clicked. Most people think that I'm going to pay for paid media. See, and we actually hired somebody. This in a previous position. We had hired someone to work with our platform, and it was in publishing. And this girl, she had come out of journalism school, and she had said, wow, I'm so good to be back in print at that point, print. And I said, well, why is that? She goes, well, do you know where I was at? I was actually an account manager for a social media company, and these brands paid a lot of money to us to put our stuff up on Instagram, but I had to do the cleanup. Mm-hmm. And we called it the shooting star syndrome. So as soon as it go up, and that was it. And people would be like, well, what happened? Well, it went up, but it's gone. Like as soon as it goes up, it's because we're consumed with so much media. The beauty about doing a paid media platform like the Post, once the story is written, and I'm a testament to it, when ABC News did the story on me, when LA Times did a story on me, that might have been 15 years ago. Right. That still is tied with keywords and key phrases and attached to you and to your brand for a long time. So, I think, within the paid media realm, within this realm, that to be as authentic as possible when you are going to write about your story, your feature, this is your feature, to be authentic, because that in today's world is credible. And today people are making brand choices, the smallest of brands, for the most unique stories, the handcrafted pieces that, if they're true, become compelling. Mm-hmm. And within that, today it is all about brand champions. This is not about mass market. This is about finding someone who really finds what you do interesting. And the only way you're going to do that is you have to tell your story. And within that story, up comes the keywords, the key phrases, and then they will begin to pass on that story just like they read a book. They'll come home and they'll say, I just read this interesting article about this, and this is what they do, and this is what, and that will become the initial process of the awareness for the brand. And then within that article, as I've said, keywords, key phrases, authentically there. This is all part of a Google algorithm that will only help index you, right? Right. In the days ahead, as people research in that vertical of which your brand might be a part of.
And you touched upon something that I think is so crucial for people to understand. You don't exist unless you can be found, and this is a big part of the alt tags. So the power of Google, et cetera. I want to ask you, we've talked a lot about authenticity and we've talked about storytelling. I want to ask you one other piece here to kind of, create the full picture of sure. Really what the power of media is, irrespective of what platform you're on and irrespective of whether it's earned or paid. Why is it important to humanize a brand, even if it's a product versus a service? Touch base on that for me, Lyle.
So I know it's probably going to be a very simple answer, but the fact is that, the thing that separates us from all other inanimate objects and all other living things is our emotion. Mm-hmm. As we swing in this technological age, everything is going to an algorithm. Okay. Put it this way, many years ago, I'm going to say at least 5 years ago, I had a trip to Ottawa, where I'm originally from, and we had a big discussion as far as robots and some of these technological aspects of our society that are truly like automobiles that are, they're on auto drive. I mean, there's algorithms that are making choices. As we move, there's a pendulum. Even as we push in technology, the other pendulum that swings back, it just goes like this, is we want to be more human. We actually want to feel more. We actually want to be, especially in this day and age, we want to be with people. We want to know that we are not isolated, that we're actually a part of them. And so those human stories, those are the pieces. And Hollywood's been doing it for years.
Yes.
There's an emotion, there's a feeling. That's what we relate to. That's what we can go. I'll give you a quick example. A former client of mine, is probably one of the largest real estate individuals in the country. Okay, very, very big. Long story short is, I never knew that she was a part of the arts until she told me. I never knew that that was something she valued, because when you see a picture or a media platform, which is, you would call that your regular advertising placement, a display ad, that doesn't say who she is. The thing within paid media is you can create this 2D or 3-dimensional platform to allow an open space so you are humanly accepted based on the values of your brand, what they are, what you stand for, or what you don't stand for. And I think that's where people today, they want to feel connected. They want to feel connected to who they engage with, the products they are about, and the brands that they're a part of. And that's meaning to them, and I think it's only going to become stronger in the days ahead. So I think that's where the human touch within any storytelling is really, really important, because, there's many platforms that can do reviews. There's many platforms that can present pictures. You're supposed to look like this. These are filters that make you look like this. But within a human, authentic story, that's why good books are good books. That's why good movies are good movies, because they have that human emotion to them. So, yeah.
Right. And so, what do you foresee as the media landscape in the future based on all of this that you feel should be on all brands' radar right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think, where we're going is, I think we're going to become more virtual. I think there are many platforms that are virtual platforms, and I hate to bring it up because I'm not a big fan of it with my children, is the gaming integration. That is going to be a huge platform and opportunity where you end up in these environments that are integrated, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a certain environment that you may value that has a brand that then you'll go, I mean, it might not be me. It might be a 12-year-old. It might be a 20-year-old, but they value that environment, and a brand integrated within that platform will be of relevance to them. So we're going to become more virtual. And I think we're going to continue to find these trusted content platforms. I talked with quite a big tech guy here not so long ago, and he said the nice thing about what you do is you're not just writing content. You're not just developing content for clients across the country. You actually have a branded, trusted platform. And I think those types of platforms, when they become valued, I always say to people with our stories, we want to be aspirational. Mm-hmm. We want to go where other media hasn't gone. The CBC is such a wonderful platform to offer the variety of culture that is endeavored within the Canadian history, picture, which and Toronto is such a great diverse platform itself, but I'm just saying within the CBC. So I guess as that being for me, I've always looked to develop compelling content that creates more of an aspirational aspect, because there's so much media today that unfortunately the only way to get attention, but I think, is through this, certain emotions that it's like the, car accident you don't want to look at. And there's certain social media platforms that are aspirational. I mean, a lot of the social media platforms do that. But I always say within our storytelling, we always want to be aspirational. And I think, we do a story about a gentleman who's a former Bay Area developer who, had a life-changing event and ended up becoming he's sailing around the world right now off the coast of Spain. He writes an article called Finding Grateful, because when he found his sailboat, it's a 50-foot Beneteau, it was named Grateful. But after all he had been through, it was a redemptive quality to go, wow. And I think within those stories, that's where people that's what I would like to give to a brand, is so that people feel what it can add. Because when you engage in a brand, you want to make sure that it adds to who you are, not take away. So I think that's really important.
Absolutely. So LYLE, if anybody wants to tap into the, opportunity of the National Business Post community, where do they need to go to be able to find out more?
So if you go to, nationalbusinesspost.com, we're online with Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at, NBP Now. You can follow us as we push out all our stories through those platforms. Certainly we're with LinkedIn as we push out our platforms. So, and, at any point in time, certainly through any of that, certainly to reach out to our staff, we'd be more than happy to speak to brands that are interested in telling their story. Because as I say, I think going forward with a lot of these platforms, which you'll see, it's all about being specific, being unique, and it's content today is king. It's just like, yeah.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this then, for anyone that is curious, the National Business Post offerings, can you give us some insights so that people know what are the opportunities within the portfolio of your community that people can tap into if they have a brand and they want to kind of get their authentic narrative out there?
So there's several different ways. We do, obviously, as we've spoken about, editorial features. These are, full-length journalistic editorial written out features that are 2,000 words, usually 1,800 to 2,500 words. But we also have done podcasts with brands. We work with, individuals to be able to do podcasts. We've done videos, and we also work with CEOs and a lot of C-level executives directly because we have an email list. So, these are all different ways, because we always put out a monthly email just to kind of push out some of the stories that, we've been covering and talk to people about what we're doing presently. And in the future, there are many different areas that we're going to develop, whether it's, certainly with COVID, it's kind of pushed us back a little bit, but to get into more live interaction so you can actually get involved in a network. Because within a business environment, we all want to certainly network, but we want to do it in a space that is of value to us, or they think, that brings value. So some of those live experiences will come up in the future.
Absolutely. Guys, I have been in conversation with the fabulous LYLE LAVER. We have really touched base on a lot of the things that my clients ask all the time in terms of media. Oftentimes people, a lot of clients don't understand truly how powerful media strategy is. And if you're one of those brands, I know that today was an eye-opener for you. LYLE has really broken down in minutiae detail truly what authenticity is, what telling the narrative from your perspective is, the difference between paid and earned media. How do you build authority through association with media out there that people revere, and what the opportunity is for paid media that you don't really get in earned media, and why it's important that your media strategy incorporates and encapsulates all of the above towards your end. I really hope that this has been a really interesting and insightful conversation for you, as it has for me, LYLE. Let's do this again and tap into maybe a specific deep dive of one of these areas that we've touched upon today. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure, and I look forward to doing it again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for hanging out with Lyle and I today, folks. I really hope that you got some real value from our discussion and that you understand the importance of being intentional with your media strategy by incorporating a customized approach to finding the best tools and resources for your intended goal. For more trainings like this, please subscribe as usual to the YouTube channel, the Open Chess Confidence Academy on podcast platforms. Also search the Transform Your Confidence show. And I also encourage you guys to hop onto our website and go to the openchessconfidenceacademy.com/newsletter, because we also drop a weekly newsletter. And for those of you that are looking for some kind of virtual assistance from me directly, join our free professional development incubator on Facebook at Transform Your Confidence. And if you want to, know a little bit more about Lyle and the services that his community offer, you heard it right here. Go see what he's up to. Go have that conversation, because, having a conversation is free, but it could change the game for your brand. This is Raj Gurn, the founder of the OpenChessConfidenceAcademy.com. Take care of yourselves, guys, and I'll see you next week.